The Garden of Eden. To a literal believer in the Bible, it is the place where God created man. To a secular scientist, Eden is a metaphor for the origins of humanity. Either way, the first chapters of the Bible affect every person in Western civilization.
We are who we are and we think the way we do because the Bible has played such a dominant role in our history and culture.
But is Eden more than a legend? Crusaders sought its location in a land to the east. Explorers hunted for Eden in the New World. And now, mankind may be closer than ever to finding the garden itself. It comes from the dawn of civilization, the story of a man, a woman, a deceiver, and a garden. It is the first story in the Bible, the story of the creation of humanity itself. But a new theory says the Garden of Eden is more than a religious story. It is a real place, and it has been found. 450 miles above the Earth, geosynchronous satellites provide startling clues that may point to ancient Eden.
Using a satellite image, it just jumps out at you. You just can't miss it. It's just that fabulous.
Dr. Juris Zarins is a maverick American archaeologist. His study of prehistoric sites in the Near East showed startling similarities to descriptions of Eden in the Bible.
The first part of Genesis is the actual description, and that's in chapter 2 of Genesis. And then chapter 3 begins the details of where it was located.
But his greatest breakthrough came when he combined the text of the Bible with satellite imagery.
I'm going to tell you where the garden is. I'm going to tell you where the rivers are. I'm going to tell you what Adam and Eve did. I'm going to tell you what happened to them.
For centuries, the search for Eden has been a spiritual quest for devout believers in the Bible. But before searching for the Garden of Eden, we have to know exactly what Eden is, as described in the first pages of the Bible.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." Genesis 1:1 and 26.
The story of Eden is familiar to millions, told and retold so often that many non-biblical elements have crept in. God creates Adam and Eve. They are placed in a paradise called Eden, where 4 rivers meet. They are told not to eat the forbidden fruit on the tree of knowledge. But Satan, in the form of a serpent, convinces Eve to eat it. Eve convinces Adam. A wrathful God punishes this original sin by banishing them from the garden. Paradise is lost. Has the Garden of Eden been discovered at last? 3,000 years of biblical history and 3 decades of satellite technology may have finally solved the quest for Eden. The Bible says Eden is located at the source of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers and 2 other rivers, the Pison and Gihon. This is problematic. The Tigris and Euphrates rivers today flow through the nations of Turkey, Syria, and Iraq. They do not spring from the same source. And the Pison and Gihon do not exist. Archaeologist Juris Zarins believes he has solved this dilemma. He traveled to the Arabian Peninsula in 1971 to research some of the oldest remnants of ancient civilization. One of his discoveries was that Saudi Arabia wasn't always a desert.
During an interglacial period, Arabia was much wetter than it is today. The delta that runs into the area of the Tigris-Euphrates is called the Wadi Batan, which means belly button river in Arabic. It's an amazing, huge river system that drained northwest Arabia and then gradually went into northeast Arabia. So I began to focus in on that archaeologically and geologically.
While researching, Zarins ordered photographs from the newly declassified Landsat satellites. What he saw took his breath away. The images seemed to reveal two ancient fossil rivers, now long dry. They are located in present-day Saudi Arabia and Iran. Are these the remnants of the Pison and Gihon rivers in the Bible? The Bible says the four rivers met at their source, but Zarins believes they met at their base, near where the Tigris and Euphrates now flow into the Persian Gulf. And though the rivers do not meet today, they did once, when sea level was much lower.
When was the situation when all four rivers were flowing? And the answer is 6,000 to 7,000 years ago was the last time that the Wadi Rima Batan system carried sufficient amount of water to create the conditions described in Genesis. So I suggest that the head of the Persian Gulf is where the Garden of Eden was located to its closest extent, because that's where the one river divides up into four.
But Zarin's theory goes further and explains what happened to Adam, Eve, and the garden itself. 6,000 BC. Sea level is at least 500 feet lower than it is today, and the Persian Gulf is a lush valley above sea level. Four rivers flow toward the sea and meet to form a single river that flows through this fertile valley that may have been the biblical Eden. The Bible says humanity cannot return to the garden because they have sinned. Science suggests a more concrete reason, also found in the Bible: a cataclysmic flood in this very region. The catastrophic flooding of the fertile plains around the world would have been recorded in the oral histories and folk memories, becoming part of the Sumerian story of the Great Flood in Gilgamesh, the legend of the sinking land of Atlantis in Greek mythology, and the biblical story of the flood of Noah. Is this all that's left of the Bible's Garden of Eden?
We've had all of these really centuries of arguments about, is the Garden of Eden in Africa, or is it in Asia, or is it in the Middle East, or where does it happen to be? I'm not sure that we really do the story complete justice if we try to make it say something other than the point the author is trying to make. I think it's a theological story about the way Adam and Eve, representing the human race, relate to their maker.
The Garden of Eden is not just a story of what was, but a story of what always is. And the story of the Garden of Eden is the story of what happens today, the possibility of life and the reality of death, and all of the options that are presented to us in our life today.
In the end, the questions remain. The Garden of Eden may simply be a metaphor for a period of humankind's development. Or perhaps these findings help prove the garden's literal existence by reinforcing the descriptions provided in the Bible. The importance of the quest for Eden may not be in finding the literal location of paradise, but in the enduring quest for the things that make us human. And that quest may be eternal.